of our neighborhoods.
Okay, David, now for another question submitted by District 18 residents. This one was asked by Whitney Weeks, and you have 1 minute to respond. What do you think the biggest challenges and opportunities are for District 18 in the coming 4 years? How about for the city in 1 minute?
The biggest challenge in District 18 right now, I think, is definitely the fact that we're sort of an island with a very vibrant downtown and a lot of people that live south of us that want to get there, back and forth twice a day or more. The traffic issues have grown dramatically. Vanderbilt has taken some great steps to try to route traffic from 65 instead of from 440. We need to look for more opportunities to do things like that. Belmont is looking at changing the way that you enter and leave their campus, or that they encourage people to enter and leave the campus. I think that is a positive thing that will take some pressure off of the residential side of the neighborhood. City, thank you. In 10 seconds, I just can't do the whole city. See me afterwards. I'll be happy to talk as long as you want to talk.
Okay, Michelle.
An interesting challenge that I see as I walk around District 18 is that we are a victim of our success. We are such a wonderful neighborhood to live in. People have invested, and it's a desirous place to come, and we are just about gentrifying ourselves out of the place. So many people have said, I'm so glad I got into this neighborhood when I did. I could afford to move into it now. I think there's a real tension there to continue to take care and maintain our property while not making it a place that no one can come live in. Like I said, I want my children to come back and live here. I think that's our biggest challenge. Metro, to me, the biggest challenge that I see is continuing to be able to offer our essential city services with the budget that we have without having to look at raising taxes or steering things like that. I think that people value our schools and our public safety and the other essential services that we offer, and we want to be able to continue to do that without putting burdens on the taxpayers, and that's a huge challenge for us.
Okay, we may have come to the most challenging part of this discussion, because the next few questions are very tough. One of them you only get 1 minute, the other you only get like 30 seconds. So just think of it like I was interviewing you, and you know that only 15 or 20 seconds what you say is going to get out to the public. So just hit the main points here. This is a 1 minute question. Explain the challenges facing Metro's budget in the next 4 years, and describe how you will evaluate and vote on a property tax increase proposal to account for any budget shortfalls. You get this first.
Okay, as I said, that is the biggest challenge. And I think that, again, we value our city services, we want our schools, and we want our public safety to be good. We also want to make sure that we're spending all our money wisely. So the first thing is to make sure that there is not waste in any area. Nobody wants to pay taxes to have it be thrown away. So I will look for waste wherever we can to make sure that we're spending our money well. There are also other ways to fund the city. Property taxes are not the only way. Sales taxes, grants, and contributions are also part of that. If we have increased economic activity, which our mayor and our administration are working hard to generate, if we have new businesses come into town and create new jobs, that generates new income and can take the burden off of us. So I think that in evaluating the property tax, if it were to be proposed by our mayor, that we would first look very strongly at all the other options and to be sure that there is no waste that we're spending our money on.
David?
Absolutely. Having worked in government for a long time now, state and federal, I know that it's important that we're constantly looking back over what it is we do, what the service is, and assessing whether we're providing that service in a cost-effective way, or whether with technology or just changes in the environment, we can do something better and cheaper. On the other hand, what I would do when faced with that question is not make my own assessment. I would want to know what you think. I would come to the neighborhood associations, but also I would work very hard to bring in other people that live here, because not everybody speaks up at the neighborhood associations. I would want to know what you think. I would want to go through and assess what are the services that we value and to what degree do we value them. I think it's only then that we can set a price on what it is we're willing to pay for. And once we know that, then we can determine how we're going to pay for it.
Okay, David, these next two questions will be 30-second responses. Metro recently approved capital for both the new convention center and funding for the brand new Omni Hotel. In addition, Metro recently retained a company to study the feasibility of building a new minor league baseball stadium. Should a proposal come before you, how would you evaluate a major capital expenditure such as this?
Again, same thing. It's not a question of whether I think it's a good idea to have a better baseball stadium. I think we definitely need one. But I don't know that it's a need that we need more than better bus service. That's something that I would want to come to you for. Before we build a baseball stadium, I think it might be good to invest in the African American Museum and some things like that that provide for a part of our community that hasn't always been included in some of these other projects.
Okay, Ms. Allen.
I think that Metro has reached a critical point now where we have spent public money on the last two large athletic endeavors, and we reached a tipping point where I think that looking at public-private funding, or even better, all private funding, is something that should be seriously considered. Just as we held out and got much private money for the Omni, rather than having to do that as a full public expenditure. As a mechanical engineer, I have spent lots of time evaluating economic evaluations, and it's important to look at the risk-benefit analysis. Is this going to bring in more than we spend out? And I will look at that as well.
Okay, Ms. Allen, we've got another 30-second question. Explain how you will communicate with the constituents about issues of importance to the district and the city, and how you will decide what should be communicated.
Communication is so important, and we have a great history of good communication in this district. We have very strong listservs, both in Belmont, Hillsborough, and Hillsborough West End. That's certainly a great tool to use to communicate with constituents. I have had a great time door knocking and discovering who's interested in things, and then beginning to build out my own database of who needs to be talked to about what. I think that with email, with town meetings, with having a regular time when you can get together with people and giving everybody your cell phone number, there are lots of ways to communicate.
Give out your cell phone number, okay. Darren. David.
I am kind of an internet nerd, so I really like having websites that I can go to and find a lot of different information. Metro's is not one of those websites that's very easy to find information. So one of the things that I started putting together, you can find a little bit of it on my current website, is pulling some of this different information together from listservs, from community events, what's happening at the Belcourt. I think we should include all of those things in addition to what's coming up at the next zoning meeting. The more information, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, David, and now a third question from a resident, Marcy Smith. How do you differ from your opponent? You have 1 minute to respond to that. Other than the obvious.
I think the biggest difference, and I guess not most obvious difference, but is that I have a very interesting background, having worked in the private sector for a number of years, having been an advocate for children and adults at a sort of critical time in their lives as a public defender. And then also I've worked for several government agencies, federal now, including the Appalachian Regional Commission, that have allowed me to learn a lot about what it takes to actually get people together, how to get the private sector to come to the table to talk to the little guy. In West Virginia, we were able to get Verizon, which is their big carrier, to come to the table, and after 18 months of discussion, got them to agree to put broadband into every small community in that state. That's the kind of history that I bring to this job. And that's what I really enjoy doing.
Okay, Brooklyn, how are you different from David?
Again, other than the obvious. I think our biggest difference is that I've been in this neighborhood for 25 years, and I've been working for this neighborhood for that entire time. I have dealt with most of the issues that I've said that have come before the council that impact this district. I have had children go through the Metro school system. I have had a child deal with reading disabilities. I have experience in working on many different types of zoning issues, and I have a long history of university relations. I think that this type of experience good background so that when it comes time to stand before the Metro Council, it's not going to be new to me. I have stood on the other side of that line many times now, and I know what it is to represent the neighbors before the Metro Council, and I'm ready to do that on day one.
Okay, Ms. Allen, what do you see as the role of neighborhood associations related to A, solving neighborhood problems, and B, to issues that come before the council within 1 minute?
This district has 2 amazing neighborhood associations that were started in response to problems that needed a group solution. I think everybody remembers the urban renewal that was, quote, urban renewal that was taking properties in our area, and also when I-440 came through. And these neighborhood associations were crucial. They brought lawsuits, they advocated, they fought to keep these neighborhoods vital and alive. And although the issues that we are fighting now are not quite as life-threatening, they are nonetheless important. And it's still important to have the neighborhood associations actively engaged in dealing with those types of issues. They also, I think, are a great conduit for getting information out to the other neighbors who are not necessarily as engaged in that. And they're a good communications point for the Metro Council person to know who can I go to make sure that folks know what's going on. It doesn't necessarily reach everyone, but it's the starting point for the people who are the most engaged and who care.
David.
I think the neighborhood associations are the kernel from which the community grows. As was mentioned, we have the very first neighborhood association in Nashville and the second neighborhood association in Nashville. I think the age and the maturity sometimes takes us to the point where it doesn't seem as inviting. And something that, since I've lived in the neighborhood, that I've seen happening at both H1 side and the BHN side is that the associations are becoming much more open and really reaching out to the community. I think events like Graduate Music Sunday is a huge help, not just to bring us together, but if we're out there, I mean, a lot of good things happen when people are talking to each other. And it's much harder to be unhappy with a neighbor that you understand and know because you see them on the street on a regular basis. So I think the neighborhood associations are key to providing those opportunities for communication, which goes both ways.
Okay.